Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here on Think Tech Talks on the series called Agritech in Hawaii, and our subject of the day is urban agriculture at its finest with these guys, Fred Mencher and Dr. Lou Primavera. They're from Primavera Aquaponics. You can tell by the shirts. Right? Show off the shirts, John. Okay.
We got green shirts with a green background, so we're floating heads here.
Actually, you came out pretty good.
Okay.
Our software was able to, distinguish you
Oh, I
and your
like
shirt.
that background. That's cool.
That's not water. Okay, so first I'd like to get to know you, and I guess I remember Louis Primavera from a show we did back about 3 years ago.
Yep.
When aquaponics was in its relative infancy, and Jim Riccozzi was here around that time. Did you meet him when he was here?
Nope.
The guy from the Virgin Islands, and you were with HPU, as I remember.
Yeah, I used to be there, and I had to decide to resign to do my business full time. I was so excited about aquaponics and feeding the islands and doing all kinds of great things. And taught with HPU for about 22 years. I felt the need to move on to the next step.
Yeah, into industry, so to speak, which is
Right.
a great move to make.
Entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So what is your PhD in? It's in science, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have a PhD in microbiology. So when I was in graduate school, I was studying about diseases that my mom had, and didn't make any big breakthroughs, but it felt good, to me to do that. And then when I came here to Hawaii, I was doing research at Shriners Hospital for crippled children on arthritis. And I was successful in initiating arthritis in rats. And then they squealed, they were in a lot of pain. I thought, I didn't want to do that anymore, so I got into teaching.
That's a great transition. I love that.
So I taught for about 22 years, and I was a pre-med advisor, and we started doing aquaponics on campus and built a greenhouse, and that's when I met Fred Mencher.
Oh, Fred, were you at HPU at the same time?
No, actually, I have a master's degree in oceanography from UH.
What a perfect combination.
And
Biology, macrobiology, was it?
Microbiology.
Microbiology and oceanography. That's perfect.
And then I was a seaweed farmer for 27 years in Kahuku. But then we lost our lease and the farm had to close. So I was looking around for something to do. Louis and I met actually at an aquaponics conference
Where
several
else?
years ago at UH. And Louis was looking at somebody to help with the aquaponic garden at HPU. So I volunteered for that, and that's how we got together.
Okay, now you have an actual business going on. Tell me
Yes.
about the business.
We've been incorporated, we're an LLC, limited liability company. We've been incorporated for almost 4 years, be 4 years in August. And it's been very exciting. Of course, with any new venture, you need to get the word out that you're around and available. There's all kinds of people that are interested in aquaponics. We saw last week a big story on the front page of the newspaper about Evicide and helping the Hawaiian homeland community. So it's really exciting, and whenever anyone hears about it, they're amazed and they think, oh, this is new stuff, let me wait and see how it goes. But since the 70s, it's been going on with Dr. Riccozzi, as you mentioned before. So we don't feel like it's, on the edge of technology. We're in there. It's been well defined and easy to do. I always say no maintenance.
So what actually do you do for people? Make me a customer. I'm a customer, okay?
Well,
I'll role play with you. So Fred, I've heard about this aquaponics thing. I like to live cheap. I'm retired. I like to grow my own food, my own protein, my own produce. Can you start me out on this? What can you do for me?
well, we have several different options. We have vertical systems, which grow a lot of greens and herbs in a very small space. We also have cinder bed systems, which will grow larger plants like tomatoes and cucumbers.
That sounds like more like hydroponics then, huh?
It's similar to hydroponics, except the fish provide the nutrients.
The fish are always involved.
Yes.
You can quote me, the fish are always
That's why it's
involved.
called aquaponics rather than hydroponics.
Okay.
And so you feed the fish, and what the fish excrete becomes nutrients for the plants, which is essentially the same way it happens in nature, but you're just doing it in a recirculating system.
Okay, so do I need any cover for this, or can I just put it out in my backyard?
Well, it's ideal to cover the fish tank because the fish don't really like the bright sunlight that much. Also, you'll get algae growth in your fish tank if you don't cover it. The plants, of course, need light, so you want to give them as much light as possible. So our systems, generally we have a fish tank with some sort of housing, or in the vertical systems, the tub is actually below the vertical tubes, and it's got a cover on it. And then the tubes or the cinder beds are exposed to the sunlight.
Okay, you're going to build it for me?
Yes,
Oh.
build it, deliver it.
So it's a whole turnkey kind of thing, and then you'll maintain it.
That's a
We
good term.
can, yes.
turnkey.
Come around and check it out every, what, week or so?
It depends on the plan you buy.
What we do is we have the first visit be free of charge. So after it's been going for about a month, we'll come back if you need more fish, you need more plants. And the fish is very important because sometimes people will buy fish any old place, dig them out of the aloi or something like that, and there might be some problems. So you got to make sure that the source of the fish is clean. And we have a private source. One of our business partners actually that lives in Mokuleia has been growing tilapia for over 30 years. So, but I was just thinking that you probably wonder why a microbiologist is doing aquaponics.
No, I don't. I don't wonder. But
Fred-
maybe
Fred
somebody
was
out there
wondering.
wonders, and maybe you should
Fred
tell
was
them why.
wondering. The real reason why I'm doing aquaponics is because, and I was trying to do this as a research project, microbiology is very important, the study of bacteria. And what's happening in the aquaponics tanks and the water and the cinder beds is that there's bacteria that will convert the fish Shishi ammonia to nitrites and nitrates, let me get that right. The nitrates are the end part of the nitrogen cycle, and that's the plant food. So the special bacteria, I call them the yogurt bacteria or probiotic bacteria, and they're helpful, and what they'll do is they'll convert the waste. And they have the solid waste as well, that we, on the most part, we filter that out. So there's lots of waste products that are there and available for the plants. More fish you add, the more waste products, and the more.
You have to balance it.
Yeah, it's a balancing act,
Yeah,
definitely.
otherwise you won't get what you want. So, okay, so you come, we consult, I show you the space I want to do this in, you tell me what kind of physical structure I need, and not only the cover of it, but what I need for the fish, what I need for the produce, and you set me up. You actually give me turnkey. Here it is.
Yes.
Here it is,
Yeah,
Jay.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
running. Watch that running. Okay, then you give me instructions on exactly how I'm supposed to run it,
Yes.
and when I harvest the produce or the fish, and when I harvest it, what do I do with it? Do I
Well,
just
you-
take it inside and eat it?
Yes.
That's it?
That's basically it. I mean, we recommend you wash all produce, but other than that, yeah, you put it in a salad or depending what you're growing, if it's bok choy, you probably want to stir fry it or something like that.
Well, I mean, I see so many questions come to mind. Why do I have to wash it? This isn't in the soil, right? It's never touched the soil.
No, but still, it's just out in the elements. You never know, what little animal might have been running around there, or what birds might have been flying by, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a general recommendation that all produce be washed.
That's a great question, because some people are worried about slugs and snails getting into their systems.
I'm
and they-
worried about rat
Yeah.
lungworm myself.
Right.
But that's just me.
The slugs from the Big Island, I guess it was, that caused that problem. The way we design things is that the fish tanks have a lip on them, so the slugs can't get up and jump into the tank there.
Okay, so you go and build it. It's ready for operation. I'm eating from it. I'm cleaning it. I'm eating from it. How can I live on it? Can you make me one? It doesn't sound like a really exciting menu. But can I live on this? My wife and me, will we have perpetual food here?
Well, theoretically, you could. You'd need a rather large system to do it. because you'd need, for example, you'd need something that would grow your starches. So you could set up a system that would grow taro, but taro plants are rather large, and you'd need a fair number of them to feed your family. So most of the people who buy our systems are looking primarily for vegetables.
You know, I wanted to ask you, you know, it's funny, everybody talks about, you know, lettuce. And they show you lettuce. And lettuce is the name of the game for them.
Lettuce is the
But you're
easiest thing
talking
to
about
grow.
maybe you could do all kinds of vegetables and bok choy and I don't know what else. Where's the list end? I mean, is this like a designer situation where I can have anything I want?
Practically, I mean, some plants are just too big to be practical for an aquaponic system. There's a lot of variety you can have, and people grow tomatoes, they grow cucumbers. Again, if you've got a really large system, taro does wonderfully well in an aquaponic system. You can grow beets, you can grow beans.
Is it different between the taro over here and the bok choy over there? Is it different or the same kind of structure?
Well, the bok choy you can grow either way. You can grow it in a cinder bed, or you can grow it in a float bed or in the vertical systems, because it's a relatively small plant. For the taro, you would want something larger, like a cinder bed that has plenty of space for the roots and for the leaves.
So you design a root system with regard to the size of the
Yeah,
of
it
the
depends
ultimate
on
plant.
what you want to grow.
But that's not complicated, and you can change that.
Well, you can add pieces onto the system. You have to adjust the number of fish you've got based on the plants you're trying to feed.
Okay, so if I was really crazy about this, I'm saying that crazy is not the operative word for the basic system, but if I went wild, over it,
Excited.
excited, thank you. And my wife said, okay, I really love this. I want to live on this, and I like a complex salad twice a day. Okay, you could do that. You could build onto the basic system, and give her every kind of vegetable and lettuce and everything that she would ever want, and we could have a salad that doesn't quit. She likes a lot of stuff in a salad. We could have a salad with 6 elements every day, right?
You could, if your system was big enough.
A good friend of ours, he brings his big salad bowl to his vertical system. Our favorite vertical system is called the VV3, Vertical Veggie 3-column system, and it holds 76 plants. He'll bring his bowl to the system, sit down, he's got his Paul Newman Italian salad dressing there,
Right.
and he just has a feast.
Exactly.
He enjoys that. And it's amazing, you know, I love to talk about the vertical systems because that's something that's unique for our company. Not a lot of people in the world have these vertical towers that we can grow a lot of plants, a lot of produce in a small amount of area. Like the footprint's about this size, almost exactly, 3 feet by 5 feet. And the vertical systems go up about 7 feet. We can make them shorter, and we do so for wheelchair accessible gardens.
Do you make these or do you buy them?
We buy the components, we buy the vinyl fence posts and the PVC, and in our workshop up at the sugar mill in Wailua, we construct them, and then we both have trucks that we, you know.
Okay, because I want to
ship
tell you,
them over.
we had somebody on the show, young fellow, who was acting as a manufacturer's agent, I think, here, and he was selling these things, the towers.
There
They're
are-
hydroponics,
yeah.
that's why I asked you. Hydroponics, and they have about 20 growth area, plant areas in them. And they got a pump in the bottom that pumps, this is only hydroponics, pumps the water through, you know, and he said that each one of these plant areas would grow something once a month or less.
Yeah.
And they cost $500, which is, I wondered about that. Here we are. That's going to be more expensive than hydroponics, right? Than aquaponics, I mean.
Not really. The prices, I think, are comparable
you
depending
don't
on
get
the
the
number
protein.
of plants. But yeah, for hydroponics, you don't get the fish, and you have
Garden
to.
Tower was the name of the product.
Yeah, there are similar products that are made for hydroponics purely.
Yeah.
They don't accommodate the fish the way our system
yeah,
does.
yeah.
Then you always have to buy their juice
Right.
they put in there.
It came with
You're
all
always
kinds of things. You
buying
had to
that.
subscribe for it, all
Yeah.
kinds of.
With
yeah.
aquaponics, there is a startup, kind of a steep startup, and we allow financing so we can make it easier for people to get these gardens. But you have to keep buying their juice, and then you don't know exactly what's in there. With aquaponics, you're feeding the fish. You can look at the fish feed ingredients, and you know exactly what's going in there. It's a high-protein diet, and it's just the waste products that are feeding the plants. And you catch up where you can return your investment. I tell people within 8 months, maybe a year, if let's say, for example, you're eating head of bok choy and some watercress every day, let's say that's $10, $12, not counting the gas to go to the store. So if you're saving $10 a day, how long does it take to recoup that $2,000 investment? Is it 8 months, 9 months, 10 months? It's around there. So it's about less than a year.
So 2,000 for what?
For the system that holds 76 plants, for example, for the fish and plants, that is a separate package. And what we do for our customers is we get the seeds started, the seedlings, and when we bring a system, it's all set. You got fish, you got plants, and we have a list of about 25 to 30 types of produce that we know we can start and germinate, and we can get them going for you.
And I think it's really valuable for you to be available to people, you know, because, see if you agree with my perception, is that this is one of those hobby things for a lot of people. And, you know, they try it. They're really diligent about it for the first 10 days.
10 days, 11 days maybe.
Okay. And then, you know, it kind of sloughs off, and before you know it, the wife is telling the husband, how come you don't watch that thing? And he's saying, how come you don't watch that thing? So if you have somebody who come around, that really changes the whole paradigm on it, because it means, you know, uncle is watching you, uncle will help you.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially some of the places that sell aquaponic systems, they sell the bare bones system. They'll sell you a couple of tubs, they'll sell you a fish tank, they'll sell you a cinder bed, and leave it to you to take it home, set it up, make it work right. And a lot of people get frustrated, or they just get bored and they don't keep up with it. We're one of the few companies, maybe the only company, that has service plans that will provide continuous service if that's what you want.
So how does that work, the service plan? Well, don't tell me, because I want to take a break.
Okay.
We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, you can tell me.
Sure.
Right.
I'm the one who does the
menu.
service.
That's Fred Mencher and Dr. Louis Primavera from Primavera Aquaponics. We're here at Think Tech Talks talking about agritech in Hawaii, and specifically urban ag at its finest. We'll be back in a minute to tell you how it's going to be at its finest.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
The way I
We'll
write.
be going on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here on Agritech in Hawaii on Monday, always Monday, 4 to 5. We're talking about urban agriculture at its finest. Should I say urban aquaculture at its finest?
Well, agriculture and aquaculture
It's
combined.
all the same. Agriculture includes aquaculture, aquaponics, hydroponics, aeroponics. Did I miss any? Something in there. It's probably
Well,
more.
there are probably, I mean, it also includes conventional land-based agriculture as well.
Of course. Lest we forget. Sometimes we do forget. You know, I'd like to see Hawaii do all these things. Okay, with Fred Mencher and Dr. Louis Primavera, or Primavera Aquaponics, which actually will build a system for you, install it, maintain it, and come around and wish you well on all the major holidays. You know? So it's a subscription system where you pay, say, for an annual or a monthly fee, and then you come around and take care of it on that basis?
Right. I have a couple customers right now that are in Ewa Beach, Hawaii Kai, and what I do is monthly or even weekly for one customer, I'll go to that garden and clean it up a little bit, add some iron chelate to the water. Something we didn't mention yet, over at UH they did a study, they found out that the fish feed, the trout feed, special trout feed that we buy, is kind of iron deficient. It's hard to say with a Boston accent, but I'm trying my best.
It has less iron than than the plants need.
Right, so we have to add a little bit of iron to that.
How do
And
you find that out?
Well, it's
You have a way of testing for iron?
well, we can, but I mean, it's something actually that's been known back since Dr. Ricosi did a lot of his research, where he had a lab presumably at his disposal, and so he was able to analyze the various elements in the water and compare it, for example, to what people would normally use for hydroponic formulations that are designed to give the plants exactly what they need.
See, this is really the expertise that we need as a community, because so many people are going to think wrongly that, oh, you just turn the switch on and it goes from there.
right,
But
right,
there's all these issues, and it's not that you can't learn this, but it takes a while to learn this.
right, right.
I mean, do you ever sort of set your clients loose and say, okay, you know enough, you're responsible enough, you know how to, do this once a week or whatever, you're on your own? Does that ever happen?
We like to hold people's hands as much as possible. And some people say, okay, I got it. It seems easy. It's a turnkey system. What could go wrong? And then sometimes, the neighbor's feeding the fish and sees a little bit of bugs and sprays their own concoction on there and the fish start dying. Maybe it's a soapy oil or something like that. So that happened before.
Oh my God.
And then we're replacing the fish. It's like an insurance policy. And the thing that really gets me about aquaponics is that we live on an island. 90% of our food is imported. What happens if we don't get that importation of the food, the nourishment that we need? We can grow our own. And with our vertical systems, you just need a small space and you can grow all your produce. Friends of mine up at the North Shore, they stopped going to the produce store. And she just happened to go into the store and later, where you been lately? I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, I grow my own produce with aquaponics.
I wonder if he should actually say that, because when the food stops, when the ship doesn't come in, they're going to come for him. They're going to be looking for food. They'll be hungry.
Right.
They're going to come for him.
I was talking to a woman this morning. We sent out a flyer to parts of the island, and she was wondering about that. She's got a big fence, and she's wondering, what if I forget to lock the fence?
That's
We
funny.
can't control that.
It's funny, but maybe it's not funny. We'll see how funny it is.
Yeah, well, if the ships stop coming, there are going to be a lot of hungry people here.
We got to really do this. This is very important. And the thing, I don't think people really understand the role of aquaponics in agriculture and in food making, food growing, because you can have the protein, you can have the produce, and my thing before is you could have a pretty robust salad and you could have pretty good protein, and you can live on that.
You
It may not include ice cream, but you can live on it. And that will come in a pinch when we, as and when we lose our other supplies. But I think, in the time of crisis, aquaponics will be very well rewarded.
Yeah, and then also if we have a shortage of water, which I've heard a lot about through Fred and others about the Pearl City area, the farms out in Kunia,
Yeah.
that they're having trouble with the old cisterns, and there
Not,
might
not
be
cisterns, but the
The aquifers.
ditches. Yeah.
ditches.
Well, the aquifers in some parts of the island are at their capacity, and there's the old irrigation systems for the sugar companies
That's what I meant.
are not necessarily in good repair everywhere. So some areas of the island that could theoretically grow food are not don't have enough water to grow what they could.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize either that when you had big plantations and there was a problem in the ditch, the big plantation had the deep pocket, the resources, the skill, and the people to go fix it. You know, so all the big plantations developed great water systems, but there aren't any. Well, Maui, I think, has HCNS, but
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of big plantations around left. So there's no capital concentration, no deep pocket as it was, you know, to fix the water systems. This is one of the problems in Maui, you know. If the big plantations were still going strong over there, you wouldn't have all these disputes over water rights because there would be more water. So you don't need water. That's the good thing for
Well,
aquaponics.
you need water, but you need a lot less than
but isn't
you
your
would.
system
It's recycling, but there's
Yeah.
always evaporation.
Yeah.
So you do have to make up for evaporation and transpiration by the plants, but it's significantly less than if you were watering the ground and the water was sinking into the ground and
Sure.
just going
Talking
away.
about major efficiency. So do you have a system where you attach, you know, some plumbing into your aquaponics system and it sort of drips in there to maintain the right water level? Or do you have to physically
can.
put it in?
You can put a float valve in there with a hose so that as water evaporates, when the water level gets low enough, say in a sump tank, the valve will open up and allow water from the hose to flow in. And that way you don't have to watch it every day. And ideally, you're going out there every day anyway and feeding the fish, and so you can keep an eye on the water level and add water if you need it. But if you don't want to take the time and trouble to do that, you can set it up with a float valve so that it'll automatically refill.
Well, this opens up one major question I'd like to cover before the next break, and that is, I mean, we have a certain level of automation going on now. You know, 'cause, I mean, otherwise it'd be too much of a headache, I think. But you guys are inventing best practices. You're finding equipment that makes it more and more automated, such as the float valve kind of thing. So if I say to you, look, I don't want to spend any time at all on this. I just want to come and harvest once a week. Make it work automatically for me. Can you do that?
Well, theoretically, it's possible. I mean, a lot of hydroponic equipment has been devised to make a lot of the nutrient analysis and nutrient input automatic.
Chemical analysis. Yeah.
And people are working on doing that same sort of thing with aquaponics. It's probably not very practical for a home system because the home system is just too small to make it worthwhile investing in all that equipment.
right.
The amount of maintenance you're doing is pretty minimal. You're feeding the fish a couple of times a day. You're adding water as you need to. You're sprouting new plants and you're harvesting plants that are full grown. There really isn't an awful lot of maintenance other than that.
Okay, so let's take it a step bigger. A big backyard, big family, and we say, look, we want a bigger one, you guys. Make it feed the whole family. We're really salad people, and we love tilapia. Would you, in that case, because of the economies of scale and you know the economics of it, would you be able to make it more automated?
You could make it more automated. It depends what the family wanted and how much they were willing to spend. But you can automate quite a bit of it.
Suppose price is no object. You know, I tell you, look, I'll pay whatever it takes to make this thing as automated as modern science will allow.
It would probably be less expensive for them simply to pay us to come around a couple
All
of
right,
times
okay.
a week
I like
Fair
that
enough.
idea.
Fair enough.
check into
So it
that.
still needs the human hand.
It would certainly help. Yeah, I mean, agriculture is still agriculture. You need some
Okay.
some
Touche.
human involvement, and you can automate a great deal of it, but probably not every last bit.
We could talk about automatic fish feeders, but they're
That's-
not
yeah,
always
yeah.
the ideal, and sometimes they stop up, and sometimes there's hairy, furry vermin that will get in there and cause some problems. So it's good to have someone take care of that, a human form to do that.
And
be on the safe side.
harvesting also. I mean,
Harvesting's got to be in person also.
yeah, and somebody's got to see that this particular head of lettuce is harvest size and go out there and cut it loose. I mean, there are automated food factories like in Europe where they actually have robots going around harvesting plants, but that wouldn't be practical for a backyard system.
No.
We're getting off the beaten track. We want to have a therapeutic advantage to growing food, where you can grow your own, teach your kids that we don't just buy things at the store, we have to grow it first. And a lot of people have found out that when people are growing things, like seniors growing things, they become attached to it. It makes them feel good. You know, maybe one of their reasons to continue on. So if we robotize everything, we're going to lose that human therapeutic aspect.
I see now that there's really a major distinction between, aquaponics as an industry, as an industrial model, and aquaponics as a home distributed model.
It's
There's a big difference.
It's
Right.
just
I agree.
like with gardening in general. It's a different scale when you're doing it at home versus when you're trying to produce large quantities for sale.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, I'd like to ask Louis my question, my challenge question.
Uh-oh.
We just have a challenge question.
Get ready.
But I'd like to give you the question in advance. So, what should I be worried about? What are the horrible possibilities that things will go terribly wrong, and my whole system will come down? Okay, and how do I prevent against that? So that's Fred Mencher and Dr. Louis Primavera at Primavera Aquaponics. We're here on Think Tech Talks, Agritech in Hawaii. We're talking about urban ag at its finest, namely in aquaponics. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, here we are on a given Monday at 4 to 5 block, talking about Agritech in Hawaii. And we're talking about urban ag at its finest, namely aquaponics, with Fred Mencher and Dr. Louis Primavera of Primavera Aquaponics. So fair notice, I told you I was going to ask you about the horrific scenarios that could happen. You wake up one morning, go outside, and they all turn green, like your shirts. What happens?
The plants are turning green or the fish?
Oh, not the plants. I guess if the plants turn green, that's not a bad thing at all.
No, that's a good thing. Yeah, those things do happen. Like, for example, if the electricity goes out and we have a single pump system usually, and if that pump shuts off for 5 to 6 hours, the tilapia are going to be needing oxygen big time. So how do we get around that? If the electricity goes out, maybe a generator, or some people want to go completely off the grid and use photovoltaics, but then you need some sort of battery backup, which is problematic in itself.
Why? I mean, can't you just get what about a little windmill? Or maybe a little photovoltaic and just a little switch that turns it on. Why not do that? Why is it problematic?
The pump has to run 24 hours a day because the pump provides not only the water circulation but also the aeration as the water falls down through the system. So if the pump is shut off even at night, the fish can run out of
But
oxygen.
suppose I have a little sensor that tells me the pump stopped.
Yeah, if you've got a system that can operate at night, the problem with photovoltaics is there's no
only in the
sunlight.
daytime.
So you need, if you have a battery backup, then you can do that.
How about wind? Anybody doing
yeah,
this with
but
wind?
wind doesn't blow all the time either. So again, you have to have some sort of storage system that will allow you to be sure that there's always power available if Hawaiian Electric goes off for some reason.
That's very interesting.
And a person who is off the grid in the first place, as a lot of people now are, where they have the photovoltaics on their roof and they have batteries in the garage or whatever, they can run on that system and they
Right.
don't have to worry about Hawaiian Electric.
I've heard of farms over in the Big Island that are able to do that. But when I was talking about the batteries, they are problematic. They needed a new advancement technology to be, you know.
It's true, we don't have that worked out yet. True.
Right, right.
Yeah. Okay, so what else? There must be other things.
Well,
Suppose they turn red one morning.
one common problem is overfeeding.
Okay.
You don't want to overfeed the fish because then you get rotten feed building up in your system, and bacteria will start decaying that feed.
This is at the
They'll-
bottom of the tank and all
Yeah,
that.
it'll be a mess. The bacteria will use up a lot of the oxygen. They can produce toxic compounds, and so you want to feed only as much as the fish will eat at a given
Do
time.
you ever put those fish in, what do you call them, this fish along that eat the schmutz at the bottom of a tank?
You can. Some people use
It's a Hawaiian
prawns. So some people do use prawns or catfish, some other kinds of fish that will eat some of the stuff off the bottom. You can do that, but and that will help. But it won't if you're overfeeding too much. Still, you want to cut back on the
I
feed.
think it's more common that the opposite would happen, where people would forget about the fish and not feed the fish. I think that's more likely to happen, and they'll be able to go for what, a week without food, and
They
sometimes
can go longer than
sometimes
that.
the fish
but-
can hibernate. It's amazing. I had this tank that I put all these baby tilapia in the fry, and all of a sudden they disappeared, and I realized that in this tank, for about 3 months I didn't feed at all, was this tilapia fish. And it survived over 3 months' time and ate up all the babies.
That's not so good either.
No. So what happens is when the fish are growing, especially now, you start hearing a lot of water splash in the mating. It's going to be a lot of fry floating in the water. It's best to take those fry out with a little net. If you leave them in there, what happens is the mama fish will mouth brood. And if they've got fish in their mouth, they can't put feed in there as well very often. So that cuts down on the amount of fertilization for the plants. So that's a difficulty. And if it gets overcrowded in there, then the fish aren't going to be comfortable.
Too many fish.
Yeah.
So you have to, what happens if you have more fish? I mean, what, they give birth, what happens? They, I don't know the sex life of a tilapia.
Well, they can. Usually in a small tank, you don't get a lot of reproduction. And what if the once the babies come out of the mother fish's mouth, the other fish may eat them. So if you want to produce more fish, it's best to put your broodstock fish in a separate tank with plenty of space and separate the adults from the babies.
So you got to watch that.
Yeah.
So that's another little chore you got to do. Now, I remember I went to see Fred Lau's place, and he was
Mari's Garden.
Mari's Garden, Mari's Gardens, yeah, and Emiliani, an extraordinary place, and he was actually taking the eggs out of the fish,
Wow.
and it was quite an operation, and growing them from eggs.
Was that the catfish he was taking the eggs from?
I think it was tilapia.
Okay.
But how do you replenish the fish? If I pull a fish out, okay, and take it inside and cook it, how do I get more fish in there? I mean, for sure. How do
Well,
I get more?
we can sell you more fish if
Little
you
tiny
just,
little.
Well, usually we'll bring them
Fingerlings.
this size, anywhere up to that size. It depends what we have available at the time.
But okay, but could I also breed them myself?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
How do I do
Tilapia you can.
How do you?
You just take the little net that I was talking about before with the fry and put them into a small aquarium. You just need to have the oxygen being bubbled in, and you're good to go. And
like a
feed them
fish
the
tank.
fry.
And you need smaller feed pellets to
Right.
feed them.
Fry feed.
And then when they're big enough, you put them back in with the other guys.
You
Yeah.
can, yes.
And maybe you ate all or most of those larger ones.
That sounds like that's not necessary. That sounds like inefficient. You got to go through too much work.
And then you can have a special tank for the breeders. And some of these get up to 5 or 6 pounds. They're monsters.
Oh, the breeding fish.
Yeah, they can get out. I mean, they'll breed when they're this big, but they can get this big.
So am I right to say that for the produce, it takes about a month, and then you can pull off a pretty nice head of lettuce or whatever,
Yeah.
and take it and clean it and take it to your table. That's pretty easy. And then you have to put another one in the growing area there, in the
Right.
growing medium, and you got to do that yourself, or somebody has to do it.
Yeah, I have videos on our website that show people how to do this. Basically, use the Jiffy pellets. They're compressed peat moss, and just put a seed at the top and cover it. In a couple of days, you have a seedling coming out. Put that in the sun. Keep it wet, keep it moist with a water spray bottle. And within a week after that, you take something out of your system, you put in that little seedling, and it's perpetual growth.
So it's like the little fish in the smaller tank. You're sort of growing it on the side, and when you have a hole ready for it, you put it in the hole.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's easy. What about the fish, though? If I take a fish out, I have to replace that fish because
You
I
don't
need
have to
the-
replace it immediately. The idea is you want the biomass of the fish in your tank to be roughly enough to produce the nutrients that the plants need. So the fish are constantly growing if you're
Right,
feeding them properly. So if you take a fish out, the rest of the fish that you've got in there are bigger than what you had originally. So it's not that critical that you immediately replace a fish. You just want to keep the mass of the fish in the tank roughly similar.
Okay, how big a fish should I pull out? I guess, do I go to the tank and say, let me see the biggest fish and let me get that one?
About
And with a net, I pull them right out, huh?
Right. About a pound and a half is the best one. Over a pound, it's hard to get the meat out and all that, but 2 pounds is better, 3 pounds even better. And you're gonna make sure that it's in a tank where the water's clear. Sometimes with some of the systems, the water's a little bit muddy looking, maybe because there's too many fish in the tank, and then the taste is not so great as when the water's real clear and you get a big cinder bed filtering the water.
You can tell. You'll look right down in the water and see if it's clear.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And you want to keep it. You want to make sure it's clear.
Yeah,
every day.
you like to keep it clear.
Okay, and okay. So now the fish is out at 1.5 pounds. What did Alan Wong said? You can cook it many ways, but it is not what did he say? The best looking fish I have ever known.
I kind of like it.
It depends. I mean, the basic tilapia is sort of gray, and the color isn't all that wonderful.
Yeah.
But they've bred them now, so you have orange hybrids and white hybrids.
interesting.
And they
So
look
they look
quite
more
attractive.
appealing.
Yeah, they look more like reef fish than the original tilapia.
It doesn't
did.
change the taste at all. It's just a
No, the
cosmetic
taste
thing.
is it's a mild fish. The flavor varies depending on what you put on it.
You know what they say about fish in general? The best tasting fish are the fish that don't taste like fish.
Well, I think that's
It's like
why a
chicken.
lot of people like tilapia on the mainland, is because it is a very mild tasting fish.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't have a strong flavor of its own, and so you can prepare it a lot of different ways. If you bread it, then it'll taste like a breaded fish. If you put a sauce on it, it'll taste like the sauce.
You have to scale it.
And so, yes, you do have to scale it.
And is it has bones in it or what?
Yeah, there are bones. It's not an especially bony fish, but
Bones are kind of large, they're easy to find.
Easy to take out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times people see our orange sunshine tilapia fish, they think they're koi. They say, oh, can you use koi? Yeah, you can use koi, but can you eat koi? I've heard that some people in Japan do eat koi, even though they're a special type of fish. We've already talked about the fish feed for koi is very different from the tilapia fish because they have colorants in them, right?
They can have colorants in the koi feed to make the fish more
interesting.
colorful, because koi are
It's
normally
all
an
about
ornamental.
color, yeah.
So you don't necessarily want that in your fish feed if you're doing aquaponics. Also, koi feed generally has less protein than the trout feed that we use. You want a fairly high protein level because the protein is not only feeding the fish, but it's also providing the nitrogen for the plants. So if you feed too little protein, even if it's adequate for the fish, it may not give you as good plant growth as if you were using higher protein
So how do
feed.
you know? I mean, this is the thing that makes it, difficult to conceive, at least for me. How do you know when you're off the mark here? How do you know when it's not enough protein? How do you know when the fish is sick? How do you know when you're doing it wrong? When there's too much schmutz in the water, or whatever it is? How do you know?
Well, if there's too much schmutz or whatever in the water, you can see that the water is cloudy.
It's a family show, Fred.
So then, you need to figure out what the problem is. Very often it'll be overfeeding. But sometimes if you have a tree nearby and flowers or leaves are falling into the tank, that can be a bit of a problem.
You think this, the aquaponics, I mean, I suppose I could ask, has it grown on your watch? Since you started doing this?
Oh, yeah,
Definitely,
Have,
yes.
have
No
you
doubt.
found a lot of people coming?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of advertising and getting a lot of business for other people, and they're doing quite well, so we're hoping to get into that line of thought as
What's the
well.
profile of your average customer?
Lately, our average customer has been a senior citizen, and they have some sort of disability where they want to grow their own. They're kind of uncomfortable leaving their home, driving around. There's one individual that has MS. I guess he was sprayed with Agent Orange in Vietnam. So he wants to grow his own stuff. He has a space available for that. Another gentleman has hernia problems or whatever. And a woman I talked to this morning had multiple cancer surgeries. So she's been told to eat a lot of fish, eat a lot of green produce.
It's the most healthy diet you could possibly
Right.
have.
So we're coming across a lot of people that need to eat better, and they want assistance from us. And those would be the likely candidates for a service and maintenance plan, where I would come weekly or monthly or bi-monthly to take care of everything and make sure it's running right forever.
What do you recommend for a starter plan? I mean, just suppose it's husband and wife, seniors. They want to eat good. They want to save money on food.
Oh yeah.
They want to have a healthy diet.
It depends on what they want to eat. If they want a lot of large tomatoes and cucumbers, then they should have a cinder bed, because the plants get large, and you could put in a certain size cinder bed. Let's say it's a 3 feet by 5 feet cinder bed. You can put 6 plants in there, but they're going to get real large. If they're more interested in greens and not just lettuce, even though we can have red lettuce, watercress, bok choy, komotsuna. Ever hear of that?
Say it again.
Komotsuna. Probably
Komotsuna.
not saying it right.
Komatsuna. It's a
Komatsuna.
Japanese variety of mustard cabbage, but it's a very, very good tasting one.
Tasting,
Oh, it's
yeah.
And it
wonderful.
grows well in this sort of system.
That's my favorite, and it has the most nutrients. Talk about watercress, bok choy, komotsuna. You can't get more nutrients in a green produce.
Do you think you guys will be expanding your operation in the future?
Oh, we'd love to. Right, even now, when Fred's making the gardens up at the sugar mill in Wailua, I have to bring my truck, and we have to truck it over to the customer because there's no more space in our workshop. It's kind of a large closet, 200 square feet, something like that?
Yeah, something about,
So,
maybe about 20 by
We're
10.
in need of a larger area for Fred and others like him later on to build our components, our gardens.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a business model that would expand as people want it. And not only that, but you would be doing great favors to young people, maybe with degrees in
Oh, sure. We've had a lot of calls.
microbiology,
Yeah.
what have you.
A lot of calls of people interested in aquaponics and want a job, and
Yeah.
said, give us a couple months. And
Outdoor work, learn a lot, learn all the tricks,
oh, sure. And then up at the sugar mill, there's all kinds of unused nursery gardens. They have roofs,
that people used to use before. Yeah.
yeah, and they're not being used, and we could easily, grow lots of stuff there. So there's all kinds of opportunities.
Well, so we have a minute left. Where do you see it going in terms of, filling the need in Hawaii? I mean, I have the sense that the Department of Agriculture is supporting this, which is a good thing. That kids coming out of school, I mean, college, like Sitar, are learning about it. But at the same time, I see people spending all their available cash on junk food, and which is not so good. And so there's two different worlds here.
Right,
How do
right.
you? It's a marketing issue, I guess.
Oh, sure.
How do you get people to change their way of looking at food and sustainability and growing food, so it's not just a hobby, but it's a daily activity, and they know a lot about it and they care a lot about it, and when they talk over the backyard fence, it's about their fish and lettuce.
I've heard that we preach to a niche market, that people that want to grow their own stuff, and there's other people that want other people to start, and they'll watch them, as you mentioned, at the back fence there. So I feel it's not our role to talk people into it. It's to get the people that are excited about it, want to do it, that want to jump in on it and find out how low maintenance it is and how easy it is. And then there's service and maintenance available, and I think we're the only ones on the island that offer those
Is that right?
services.
Okay, well, let me close by asking you to tell people how to find you and what they can find there.
Okay, go to our wonderful website. My customers tell me that. It's at getaquaponics.com. It's a wonderful website, all kinds of videos, FAQs. And if we have a couple seconds, we can show those photos that Fred brought on the...
Sure.
Let's see here.
Oh, there's one. I see it.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, that's what it looks like. Great.
Yeah, that's the fish tank with the cover, and it's got some grow tubes up on the top, so we're making double use of the fish tank cover. It not only provides shade, but that's where your greens and your herbs can be grown. And then there's a cinder
You
bed.
designed that.
I did.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Good work.
That's a 300-gallon tank, and that holds, we have like 50 fish in there now that I put in there.
Okay.
We can go to the next one. I think there's a picture of the cinder beds. Oh, yeah, they're there. In the cinder beds to the left-hand side, you can see the little tomato plants coming up. There's soybeans. There's all kinds of spinach and other things. So this guy is amazing in terms of he's going to have his friends be able to eat and have a vegetarian lifestyle.
And is that wood or plastic?
It's mostly wood. The grow tubes are plastic, but the supports are wood.
It doesn't look like it's complicated at all. It's pretty
Oh,
easy
no,
to
no.
understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's a relatively simple system. There's a couple of sump tanks underneath the cinder beds with a pump that pumps the water up through the grow tubes. It falls into the fish tank at the same time aerating the water, and then it flows through that the relatively large PVC pipe from the fish tank just by gravity into the cinder beds. There's a siphon that allows the water to come up and then siphon back down, so you pull oxygen into the plant roots as the water flows through the system. And then the water just falls through the siphon back into the sump tanks underneath the cinder beds, and the cycle repeats.
If I had a 75-pound Labrador Retriever, would I be safe to let him out into that yard?
You probably could, as he might want to drink from the sump tank.
I'm just trying to visualize.
You put a little fence around it to keep the doggies out.
It'll teach
Yeah,
him
we,
not to.
we have more problem with probably with birds than we do with dogs, because the
Okay.
birds, anything red they'll go for. So if you've got like a cherry tomato plant, they're gonna, as soon as the tomatoes get ripe, they're gonna go for the tomatoes.
You have to pick your crop carefully.
Yeah, and the birds will eat the fish food also.
Ah.
The fish pellets are sitting there in the water, and they'll sit on the netting, and they'll pick at them, and I try to throw stones at
It's like
them.
fun shooing them away. Fred Mencher and Dr. Louis Primavera, Primavera Aquaponics. Here we are in Agritech in Hawaii, our Monday show, 4 to 5 p.m., talking about urban ag at its finest with aquaponics. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Nice to see you, Louis.
Nice to see you
Fred.
again.